America's crime crisis turning deadly for police. Just a day after 3 Philadelphia SWAT officers were shot, 2 Connecticut officers killed in the line of duty in what authorities think was a deliberate act to lure law enforcement to the scene. A 3rd officer was wounded, but thankfully got discharged from the hospital this afternoon. The cops responding to a 911 call for a possible domestic violence incident when they were met with immediate gunfire. The suspect was killed during the initial shootout. Their fellow officers overcome with grief.
Words cannot express the sadness and grief that brings me before you this morning. They answered a call to duty and they responded without hesitation. And that's what they did every night before that. And that's what all our officers do and will continue to do day after day. To our fallen officers' families, we will never forget the sacrifice your loved ones have made. We are here for you, and we will continue to be here for you.
Since Monday, at least 12 police officers have been shot. Since Monday, the National Fraternal Order of Police slamming the culture of lawlessness created by anti-police rhetoric and soft on crime. Prosecutors judge that has to be policeman's or woman's greatest fear, to be lured into an ambush-style attack.
Especially now, it's more and more common now. I mean, as he was talking, as the chief was talking, I couldn't help but think of all of the police officers' funerals that I've been to and how the brothers and sisters in law enforcement come from all over the country to pay their respects. I mean, what has happened in our culture is that there is no fear on the part of criminals to kill police. There was a time when they were worried about it. They were worried about the death penalty. Now it's like they're just emboldened to do it. And, you know, the saddest part is you look at these 3 guys who were shot in Connecticut, 2 dead. They're in the prime of their lives, a 35-year-old, a 34-year-old. They say goodbye to their spouses. One has 2 little kids. His wife is pregnant. And, you know, never to come home again. They didn't know what was their last day. But 2 dirtbags decide they're going to make it a domestic dispute, wait for them to show up, kill them, and kill the 2 of them. One died in the hospital, one died at the scene, and then severely injures a 3rd one. This is just happening far too often, and I think that what's got to happen now is that we've got to take a look at the statutes as they relate to law enforcement, because they are in the line of fire. The statutes and the penalties has to be increased. If you're against a death penalty, okay, be against a death penalty, but it has to be life without the possibility of parole. There has to be a deterrent now when it comes to these criminals who feel that shooting a police officer is nothing that they have to worry about.
And this happened near ESPN's headquarters in Bristol. I've driven by there. Not necessarily considered a bad neighborhood, Jessica.
No, I was thinking that when you see Bristol CT come up on the screen, that's not something that you're used to seeing whatsoever, certainly for that kind of press conference, right? That was part of the surprise as well when suddenly we were talking about Sandy Hook, right? That these are areas that you don't think of that are going to have these kinds of terrible things happen. And there was another story out of Philadelphia, which has had all sorts of problems with this issue. And I thought that the quotes from the police chief were really important to this. She said it is not the job of officers to be shot at. That's not in the job description. They put their life on the line, but they don't go out expecting that. And then she said, we are tired of arresting the same suspects over and over, a direct shot at DA Krasner. And as you continue to see these fissures between police chiefs and DAs, I think things are going to get more and more difficult for people to not change their stances and consider things like what you're talking about here, Judge, that you have to up the penalties for these people, or to, frankly, go to the people in positions of power. If you are a governor that has the constitutional right to remove these types of people, that you're going to have to do that to, A, keep people safe, but B, to keep your voters. People don't want to see, people in Bristol, Connecticut, they don't want to see this. That you don't move to Bristol, Connecticut for this to happen.
It is interesting, Dana, that in January 6th, to bring it back to that when police officers and Capitol police officers were assaulted there was this national outrage, and especially from the Democrats. You heard they kept talking about they support law enforcement. Now cops are being executed, and you don't hear the same type of outrage or condemnation from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think any law enforcement officer who comes over under that kind of a threat, whether on January 6th or here in Bristol, Connecticut, or the ones we talked about in New York, or the ones we just talked about in Texas 2 weeks ago. I mean, this is happening. It's unbelievable when you said 12 since Monday. It's only Thursday.
Yeah.
And America deserves a lot better, and our law enforcement deserves a lot better from them. One of the things that you're seeing is that crime is ticking up in terms of an issue area for these midterms. And Pennsylvania is one. Philadelphia obviously has got a terrible situation. But place like Bristol, Connecticut. So it depends on how your voters turn out. But I would also just point out this on the midterms. If you're watching some of these Senate races, Wisconsin is incredible what happened. So Mandela Barnes, a Democrat, running against the incumbent Ron Johnson. In late August, Mandela Barnes was kind of up in the polls and was like, wow, it's possible that Ron Johnson could lose. And in the last few weeks, Ron Johnson and Republican allies came in and they just hammered Mandela Barnes on being anti-police, defund the police, or his stances on law enforcement. And yesterday, a major poll showed Johnson now comfortably ahead by 6 points. And you might see that in other races as well. I just point that one out to say that I think people are paying attention to this. Any Democrat who thinks that crime is not a big deal, I think they're going to be proven wrong this year.
Last word for Greg.
I'm glad that we cover this because I'm not sure anybody else is, because it just pays to remind everybody the difference in press coverage between police malfeasance of the last 5 years and officers getting killed. There were something like 50 officers killed by gunfire this year. All right. If that were on a constant loop, the way one unarmed suspect was on other networks, maybe this wouldn't happen. Both are bad, but for some reason the media, and you allude to this, see one thing as far worse than the other, even though the numbers refute that. What does it take for ESPN, right? ESPN, an extremely woke company, what would it take for them to admit that these so-called experiments, well, actually they are experiments, so-called reform that have turned out to be failed, grisly experiments, have taken thousands of lives, and these lives are minorities. These are the people progressives claim to be helping, but instead, because of their assumption that the poor is somehow okay with criminals, even though the criminals are in their neighborhood, they're in every neighborhood, but they're in there too, that somehow they would object to having a police presence. And last, this is another example of, maybe learn a lesson about waiting until it's politically consequential to act. If you had acted when people were raising the alarm, when the canaries in the coal mine were screaming, you might not be behind in these races. But instead, you waited until it was politically consequential, and now you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they are, and that's going to be one of the major issues they're going to lose on.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.